Hi guys, another episode of Too Many Cooks with me, Charles Burns, and I didn't even catch your surname. It's Sarah, right? But what's your surname?
It's Sarah Raw, R-A-W.
Raw. That's an awesome surname.
Yep.
What a class. Sarah Raw. And I came across yourself, I don't know, just scrolling through Instagram. I don't know how you popped in my feed, or do you do sponsored posts maybe? Is that maybe where it came from?
I did do one paid partnership with with QuadLock, and
There
I
you
feel
go.
like
There you go.
that really
There you
just
go.
like,
There you go.
yeah, pushed my profile all over the
Oh,
world.
because like everybody else, I've picked up cycling during this period of time, and it's been driving me a little bit mad about my phone in my pocket and what do I do with it. And then everyone's like, "Oh, check this quad lock thing out." And once you do, you get retargeted a bajillion times until it becomes so annoying that you either buy
Yeah.
it or you go ignore the ad.
They'll track you down.
Yeah. I'm close. They're working on me. Maybe after this call, I'll buy one. Yeah, I'm close.
Yeah.
That's right. And then I could see your profile, I'm like, oh, this is an interesting person. Like, and our general podcast is just health and fitness and well-being. And anyone that fits into that, even loosely, I want to talk to. I'm just interested in because they tend to be, not always, but tend to be super interesting people. And particularly people that just kind of off the fly, like this was a random bloody message on Instagram that then accept my invitation, like tends to be someone interesting to me. If you're like willing to just share your story pretty openly with someone you don't have a foggiest idea about, that I think is pretty cool. Like just being open to having a conversation with somebody, you know, that's just like interested in what you're doing. Like it's funny, I was having this chat today with somebody, I can't remember who, about people find it odd that people are interested in other people for no ulterior motive other than I'm just interested in people. Like I'm just genuinely fascinated as to how other people live, like what I could do better, what they're doing that I'm missing out on, whether it's well-being, fitness, or nutrition, or lifestyle in general. Like, you know, because there's so many ways to do this thing called life, so many different ways of playing it. And we get in this lane and we think our way of playing it is the only way. And it's so easy to get in the headspace. And honestly, like this channel is just self-indulgent because I'm just fascinated by other people, what they're doing and how they're getting on. And if you look across who we've interviewed so far, like the thread's very thin. It's literally just health and fitness and well-being. If I find they're interesting, they're interesting. And some have just really different, unique stories. And I found two criteria for me that seems to be the energy givers, the energy sappers, shall we say, in relationships. And that is if they are passionate people and if they're curious people of curious mind. If people have those two prerequisites, so you tend to have, I do anyway, a great conversation that's like goes different areas and flows. And anyway, enough about me and how this came about, because that's that. I said to you before, today's been a bizarre one with different things going on. So I've not had a chance to really look into your profile. And I do apologize for that. So I normally like to be a bit prepared and know who I'm talking to more so. But so how do you've got, what is it, 20,000 as a guess? I've not got it in front of me, followers on Instagram, right? It's a good number. How many is it now?
I do. I have about 23,000 followers on Instagram.
Okay.
And then I have some other followers on Strava and Facebook and some other places. Yeah, so it's been nice.
So my first question is, how does somebody get to, or how did you get to 23,000? Was that like you're just doing the same thing you've always done, and for whatever reason it just got picked up? You mentioned that quad lock sponsored post that you did. Did that ignite things? But presumably you had a bit of profile before that, hence how they came across you.
Yeah, I mean, my Instagram story is like my social media, I guess, journey is very, very like organic. It's not something that I put a whole lot of work into. And actually, you know, my Instagram handle, Get Lifted Miami, that handle was actually created for a company that I was starting like 5 years ago. And couple at that time, I actually was not a cyclist at all. I hadn't biked since I was a child. And I started this marketing business by myself, and I needed some startup money, which resulted in me selling my car so that I could have this money, seed money, to start my business. And with that money, I purchased a bike, just like a regular, at that time it was called a Pure Fix. So I purchased a Pure Fix only because I now no longer had a car and had no way to get to the co-working space that I had my company at.
Okay.
So I was like, you know what? I live really close. It was walkable. It was walking distance. It was about 2.5 miles away, but 2.5 miles walking can take a lot of time. It can take like 30 minutes. So I was like, you know what? Let me get myself like a single speed short commuter bike that's nice and cute. And that's really how like the whole biking journey happened. And that was only 5 years ago. So it's really crazy when people see my Instagram now, they're like, oh, like, have you been doing this for like 10 years? And I'm like, no, I'm not like, I wasn't an athletic person before this at all. And what ended up happening was that there was some people who worked at my office that also had a bike. And they told me that once a month, there's this big ride that happens in Miami called Miami Critical Mass. And everybody gets together and they do a 13-mile bike ride together.
Mm-hmm.
So at this time, I was really scared. Like when I first got the bike, just like riding from my house to work was like a little scary because if you haven't ridden a bike as an adult, it can be unnerving. All the cars, you feel like people are watching you, waiting for you to fall and make a mistake. Like it can be a little unnerving. So I was like, oh man, okay, this sounds really crazy. 13 miles. Like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this.
Mm-hmm.
But so my friend Sten, who is like a videographer, he does wedding videography. He also had a bike and he was like, let's go. Let's two of us go and do this bike thing. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So that's kind of how the whole bike journey started. At my first critical mass, my friend Sten took a photo of me on his phone. Now this is like back in the iPhone 5 days.
Wowza.
So like he took a photo of me coming back from critical mass. I was just so proud of myself for being able to cycle 13 miles in a big crowd of 1,000 people of cyclists without falling. So I just thought that that was really like
awesome.
an accomplishment for somebody like me.
Sure.
And he posted that photo. He took that photo, gave it to me, and I posted it on Instagram. I think at that time I may have had maybe 100 followers.
Okay.
And then a bike blog saw that photo and they reposted it. They reached out and they say, hey, can we use this photo for a blog that we're doing? And I said, sure, of course. Then the next day I woke up and my Facebook account was maxed out. I had so many friend requests that like, yeah, it was just kind of one of those things where I woke up and I was like, is this really happening? And same thing with Instagram.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that like kind of just fell in my lap. Then when I logged into Instagram, I saw that I had over 2,000 new follows overnight.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, I was like, this is really crazy. But even at that time, I didn't really think of myself. I was working in the marketing industry, but I never really saw myself as an influencer or like a social media person because I was more focused on like web design and more of the nitty gritty, like server technical data stuff. And anytime I had social media clients, I would actually source them out to another friend of mine who actually focused on social media marketing. So it's just funny, 5 years down the road, this is now my jam, and it's interesting. But that's kind of how it started.
So
and I blog took some, like recycled my photos, and it just kept on building from there.
That's interesting. So
yeah.
What was you mentioned this whole thing started because you were trying to start a startup and then you had the bike and the co-working thing. So what was that Get Lifted startup? What was that actually trying to do?
Well, Get Lifted Miami was the marketing agency I wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah. So like there was a short period of time where my company was called Get Lifted Miami, and I eventually had to change the name because once I used that social media account to post a picture of the bike with my friend going to critical mass, it became a bike page on its own. Like people didn't want to hear about like my business ventures. They just wanted to know when I was going to ride my bike again. So I ended up actually having to change my company name to Midtown Digital Media, which is just like focused on just web stuff. And then the Get Lifted Miami title and Instagram handle, which I initially intended for business use, had just become a hobby page for things, just riding my bike with my friends.
Wow.
And that's kind of, it took a life of its own. So I'm just like a passenger on this like train that's going by itself.
And metaphorically and literally, like a
Yeah, it's like I'm just in for the ride.
so interesting. So interesting.
Yeah.
And but you said you had no like prior athletic tendencies, let's call them that, or anything.
No, I'm a hardcore retired party girl. Like the only cardio I was getting was on the dance floor and drinking. Like that was kind of all I did for the, between my 20s and 30s.
Oh
It was
my
a
word.
solid decade where I did nothing but party. So it's just I've never been an athletic person.
So you just got into this and like you got, obviously you're getting a lot out of this as well. Forget like the financial stuff, but just the physical fitness thing. Like you obviously must have really enjoyed the cycling. Like, so like I'm in this space as well where like when you're fundamentally loving what you're doing and it's also producing rewards that you probably never considered,
Hmm.
mine's a little bit different because they're more tangible in some respects and more obvious, right? Then yours is just like I posted the picture and it just went like this. But I do understand and empathize a little bit with what it is when it's like, hold on a minute, like is life like this? Like I can do things I like and I can get by and I'm happy and like, what? This is odd, right? Like that, is that kind of what happened? You were just like, huh?
I think every year that, this thing took a life of its own, I think that's when I really started to like, because right around the same time, I was getting into more personal development books, a lot of business books, leadership books, law of attraction, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I fully grasped the concepts that were being taught in those principles and teachings until I started living it and I started experiencing what it
Yeah.
was like to just actually work on the things you love.
Yeah.
So, like 5 years ago, when I was taking clients from all different industries, I remember saying to myself, you know what? I want my biggest problem every day to be about bikes. Like, I want to go into a meeting and like talk about bikes and have bikes be the biggest problem of my day. And then fast forward to 2018, I was offered a position, a marketing manager position at the largest distributor in the United States. So like now when I do go to staff meetings or I go to team meetings, that is my biggest problem. My biggest problem is really like, hey, this bike, there's a new bike part. Like, how do we want to market this? Like, who do we want to give this to? Like, so it's just so funny to see all of that kind of come to life.
Mm.
And I think a lot of my journey is sharing some of that because I grew up in a very traditional Asian family where, I think like the expectations that like my parents would have been happy if I was just like a really good secretary. Like they would have been like, oh, like she's got her life together. Like if I had just gotten married to a good guy and had a decent job, my family would be like very pleased.
It sounds
So for
good.
me,
I have similar like family pressures or expectations. Let's call them that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a
My
cultural
grandpa,
thing.
for example, cannot let go of the fact that I didn't go to university. Like, forgetting how successful I am, like, he's just like, yeah, but like, I wanted to complete university. I'm like, yeah, you wanted me to. Like, not me, you, because like, you want to live vicariously through me. Like, and that's where I think parents, I don't want to say get it wrong. I'm not a parent, so I don't know, but I'm like, that's where it steps over of being like, you're supportive to like, you're being oppressive, you know? And it's great to have them to have ambition for you, but like if they go down, people go down different paths. Like everyone's different. Like how I am compared to my brother, anyone else. Like it's not fair. And that's where the world's at such a turmoil, too much, yeah, in turmoil. Take COVID out of the situation. I think all COVID's
Yeah.
done is extrapolated and shown things what they are more so than we knew before. That's my opinion on it. If you would just park the medical aspect for a moment, if you look at what actually is done. And I think the biggest problem is that people just don't understand how to understand other people. Like that's the
Yeah.
biggest problem going on right now. Like, and what, as I said to you, like before my little like intro, which became more of an intro than it was meant to, I just love understanding different perspectives and like how someone else has done something. Like it's just truly interesting to me. And listen, if that helps somebody else who's on your journey or ahead of your journey or behind or trying to do us whatever, that's awesome. Like that's all I do. Like that's all I do in my day to day. Like you focus on bikes, I focus on providing opportunities to other people, making them successful. Like in whatever facet. Like that's not financial. That's their definition of successful, right? And it's like that's why for me this is such a win-win-win, because I'll provide people like you a platform, and albeit right now it's not at the hundreds of thousands that I want it to be, but it might be one day, it might not one day. But the fact that you're willing to just like talk to me and like have it recorded, and yeah, someone might find some use out of it, someone might not, like that's awesome. And then when I see someone like the other day, like a kind of friend, let's call them like someone that I've gone to school with, let's go with that, like sent me a message saying, hey, like I just listened for an hour and 45 minutes to you being interviewed and it was awesome. And they showed me a picture of on their phone, on the car, you know, the screen of my podcast on there. Like not me, my podcast phone. And like, I was like, wow, I think someone listened to me for an hour and 45 rabbiting on, like, and they got something out of it. That's amazing. Like the reach you can have, and of course you have a bigger reach than I do by a long way in terms of Instagram, like is amazing. Like someone looks at your page and I'm sure you got a lot of negative stuff, and let's talk about that in a second, I think, but most people look at that and they go, wow, this is a super interesting person. Like, okay, cool. I want to get into cycling. This person loves cycling. All right, I'm interested. Like, and that's where it goes. But I'm sure you get a lot of unwanted attention. You get to just a guest, like from just hearing other people in your position, right? And I'm curious as to how you deal with that, right? Like, I'm sure that must have happened. People, whether it's friends, people around you, being very negative about it because they're not understanding that you can make a living this way and live this way. Forget make a living, live this way. And your parents mentioned before. So it'd be interesting to know your thoughts on how you dealt with that. And then also from an external position, how you deal with, if you're just simply blocking them out, literally and metaphorically, all the negative nonsense that goes on as well.
You know, I think I'll start with the negativity because it's something that's like happens everywhere, not just on social media. I think it's more prevalent on social media because people don't have to be accountable. They're not responsible for the negative emotional impact that they have on others, because they can simply go heckle somebody, be mean to somebody, go bully somebody, cyberbully somebody, and then just log off. And then therefore they're not really held accountable. I think I've been very fortunate in that in the bike community, I will say most of us are fairly happy people. Like when people are getting the exercise that they want and they're passionate about something outside of themselves, they tend to be a little less negative. But of course, every community has their hecklers and their naysayers. And I think, you know, you just kind of have to handle it with grace. Like if it ruins your day to hear from them, if it ruins your day to hear from them, then I think it's worth stepping out and saying, oh, okay, you know what? I don't really want to hear from this person because it does affect my day, or it does impact my mood, or, you know, I am a firm believer in being able to stick up for yourself, because as a woman of color, like, you know, just trying to be in a male dominated industry, there was a lot of kickback, like especially, you know, I found my success on Instagram first, and then I became an athlete. And I think part of my athletic journey was because I got so much pushback from people who felt like I wasn't deserving of some of the sponsorships that I got because I wasn't competing. Or so it was just it was a really interesting thing. It wasn't a whole lot of people. And it was actually, sadly, it was like the people that were the closest to me that saw me having so much opportunity and saw that as something, you know, I think when anyone is like mean to someone else, or anybody has negative experiences or is negative towards you, it really has nothing to do with you. It's kind of like when they look at themselves and they see the lack of progress in their own journey, it can trigger them into having a negative reaction towards the person who they're comparing themselves to. And I think
great thought. So
so I think once you can kind of grasp that, you have to have a lot of compassion for these people. A lot of people are just frustrated with themselves. A lot of people just want to do what you have done. So I think just being as compassionate as possible. And again, I've been very fortunate in that I haven't had that many negative people reaching out to me. I've actually had a lot, like I think up until I had like 15 or 16,000 followers, I really didn't have any negative folks. It's only when I got above those numbers that I had some followers that were just really negative, and I do my best to filter them out, especially if they start breaking down some of the other people within my own community. So like if they get into the comments and they're arguing with other people about their beliefs about something, I definitely do a little patrolling. I'm not the best at staying on top of that, but I do try to keep
Mm.
my community safe in terms that like
For sure.
we're not here to talk about politics. We're not here to talk about anything other than our like passion for sports.
For
Like
sure.
that's
For sure.
yeah. So I've even had like close friends like during many different times.
Uh-huh.
You know, I've even had like friends like kind of attack me. They're like, hey, listen, you have 20,000 followers. You need to talk about this president, or you need to talk about this political cause, or
Seriously?
this socioeconomic cause. And I'm like, no,
Seriously?
no, 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 no. You're coming to the wrong place, because this is a place
Did
where we
you
don't talk about any of that.
did you remove a lot of these quote unquote friends from your life, or you just learned to deal with them or push back in a certain way, or a bit of both?
You know, like some people I've had to just kindly have a conversation and say, hey, like I don't see this relationship being productive, and you know, let's part ways. I wish you well, and you know, thank you for your
Mm.
many years of friendship
Mm.
and support. We're just at different places.
Yeah,
And I
for
think
sure.
again it goes back to that like energy work.
So,
When you're yeah, like when you're energetically like tending to your own self, and you are grounding yourself, you're starting your day out with like some yoga, some meditation, some journaling, grounding yourself before you even leave your home,
mhm.
then you know you're able to go out there and you're able to actually help people. You're
Yep.
able to actually bring positive energy into the room
Yep.
versus bring your negative energy with you into the room.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I think when you start to notice the gap between your energy and someone else's energy that might be much lower, you really have two options. You can help them and you can show them more love and you can help heal them.
Mm.
Or if it's detrimental for you to be there, then you can remove yourself with love. And
Mm.
I think there are definitely relationships where I think the more successful I became, the more friction I felt with certain people. And
Mm.
I think when I really think about it, I think that it boils down to the lack of success they're experiencing in their own life and the frustration. And it's triggering to see somebody who may be making progress in a department where, I don't know, like you said, I think there's so many people who really believe that like if you want to be successful or if you want to be rich, you have to do something you hate, and
Mm.
you have to do something, you know, like that goes against the grain, but
Mm.
you really don't. When you see these surgeons operate, like the most high paid surgeons, they love operating.
Yep.
There's nothing they would rather do
Yep.
than be in the OR and operate. They
Yep.
love that stuff,
Yep.
and they make a lot of money doing it. You see the
Yep.
best attorneys in the world, they
Yep.
love litigating things. They
You know,
love it. They're
the
great
other
at it.
thing, I'm not going to mention this because I'll know who it is. But I was having this conversation, or not a conversation, last night with someone who works with me, and was explaining why they work with me, which is quite interesting. Because this person can work for anyone, basically. And they were saying that which you have absolutely in your veins, the boundless optimism, that it's just within you, or it's not. Like not everyone has that, right? And that's it's. I was also talking today. You wouldn't believe the timing of this conversation that we're having right now, because I literally just got off the phone with someone very close. I was having exactly this conversation. Like you wouldn't even believe that. And this morning I was talking to a kind of, I suppose, a mentor-mentee relationship. It goes both ways, right? I think the best ones do go both ways. I think the worst ones don't,
Absolutely.
right? And we were talking about exactly this. Like this has just bizarrely been my day, but obviously we organizes like whenever it was, it had nothing to do with this, and it was going to go here, but it
Yeah.
actually has. It's really interesting, and that's why I said to you before, like I love it being free flowing. I don't write anything down, like in terms of questions,
Yeah.
until something comes up. And it's so interesting because this person, I was saying to them, like, and this is how I view it, and I think you view it as well, is like there's kind of two things, like two people out there, and people go through different cycles, and you have to be very aware, as you were saying, as to what cycle they're in, because it may well be that energy sapper is just needs your help right now, needs that love and needs that care and attention to get them back to the energy giver and the energy like mutually, whatever word is, I can't think of the word right now. mutually beneficial relationship, right? And then there's some people, and I had this post, I had this happen to me. No, that's not true. I made this happen for me about 8 to 10 weeks ago, where I put a post out. I do every Saturday, I do a vlog called Burning Issues, right? And this one was about meaningless relationships and about people, you talked about it very much so, more eloquent than I, about people when you've grown up with, so I'm Jewish, so my community is very tight, and the school I went to and the people around are led by your parents to a large extent. Maybe the same for you, I don't know. And so then what happens is you then get to a point where you, and I think the age this happens from what I can see for most people is around 27. It's around that kind of age. When you've had enough time out of university to kind of figure out that the corporate life is or isn't for you and certain things, and you kind of know yourself. And that's the best place to be, when you truly know yourself, what makes you tick and all these things. And then you go and you say, well, these people, they're not bad people, they're not horrible people, they're not negative people necessarily, but are they giving me, and are they passionate and curious? That's my criteria. And so far, I haven't found a single person that is passionate and has a curious mind that I don't get a huge amount of value in talking to, and hopefully the same is true. Because, you know, like I'd love to go on a bike ride with you next time in Miami, which is off to quite a lot, by the way, because my best friend listens.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So I'm out there an awful lot. Obviously not now, but I am there an awful lot normally. And my grandparents lived in Boca Raton, 45 minutes away. Whatever. So I've literally been there like my entire life in crazy amount of times. I love it to a degree, not always. But yeah, so like this whole like energy flow thing, and what you said is very interesting about the negative stuff, because I had my own kind of experience of that, and still do to an extent. I get far more positive stuff, but I think it's human nature. And Gary Vaynerchuk says this, and I'm not sure how much I believe of it, but he says, even if he gets a positive that he's the best thing in the world, or a negative, he doesn't have any emotion either way. I don't truly believe that's true. I think that's a nice thing to be, a nice place. But I don't think human beings, we're animals, and like someone comes to you in the street and says, you are an effing XYZ, but someone says, you're beautiful, you're attractive, I love what you've done. Come on, you react different ways. Even if it's internal and you, like, come on, everyone does. And to say you don't is just like, you're not a robot, buddy. Unless Gary Vaynerchuk is a robot, in which case, sorry, Gary Vaynerchuk. But what you said is so true, and it's interesting, and I think that's the art of life, is how and when do you say to relationships or circumstances, listen, I could help this out, probably not my place right now. Or I could help this person out, because like otherwise we spend our entire lives like just being sapped of energy. And then you get to a point in your day, like, what am I doing for me? Like what, like, because you have to do stuff for yourself. I think that's when we'll turn to drugs, and it turns to all these externalities to try and have something for me. And I'm hoping this coronavirus piece has really shown people of the value of time. And I was taught, again, I had another burning issues about this the other day, about time, and that once, I'm sure you're in this position as well, it sounds like, once you realize that time and money, that's not an equation. Like, it isn't the more time you put in, the more money you get out. Like, that's just maybe 100 years ago, maybe 50 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Not now. Like, now that's not how it works. And it's also super difficult, I'm sure you maybe find yourself, with parents and people around you, that old generation, that just don't get it. They're like, Sarah, like, how can you be making money doing that? It's not possible. You're not working. You're not doing anything. Because in their view, working was sat behind a desk, going to an office, commuting for 2 hours, sitting down, typing, or whatever it was. And you're like loving everything. Like, Sarah, it's not possible. How can you enjoy what you do? Not possible. You know?
Yeah. I think that's definitely, like, even my parents' generation, it was more like you do what you can do versus like what you want to do.
Yeah.
And they can certainly see, like, the millennials, where they're like, you know, millennials are more concerned about doing a job that feels more meaningful and satisfying versus just making ends meet. And I think, you know, there's so many different levels of that. And then even the generations after us, it may be even more refined, their process. And I think we have to just, all we can do is pave the way for the next generation to have a more precise process, one that doesn't require them to wait till they're old. So like, think about our parents' generation, at least my parents' generation. They would essentially work their entire lives doing something they hated, and then they would retire and then pick up this hobby of like gardening or painting or something, golfing, and then really fall in love with that and use their golden years to explore that. Now, we do that in my generation. I'm in my 30s now. I feel like my generations, if you hopped on early, you started doing this around your like mid 20s. You realized you're like, man, I went to I'm working in corporate. I'm not happy. And then by your early 30s, you make it happen. You're like, I'm leaving this so I can go do something I really love doing. And then once you get there, even from there, it refines even further and further. But at least we got a head start on it. Like, we don't have to wait till we retire from our regular jobs to even have the courage to go explore the things that we're really passionate about. And I think this younger generation does it even sooner. They get out of high school and they're like, boom, like, I want to try what's really in my heart versus what people are telling me I should do. So I think that's a definite plus. And then when it comes to like the energy zapping thing, I think a good way to gauge whether the interaction is, valuable for both people is when you're truly serving someone, when you're actually helping and you're serving. I think, like you said, like there's a relationship between the teacher and the student, and the roles can reverse at any time, right? Depending on where you are. But I think when you really look at it, like, if it feels like you're serving someone and it feels good to serve them, even someone, let's say a friend calling you with a really bad day, big problems, but you're able to bring some light into their world and serve them and say, hey, listen, I've been through something like that, but here's how you can overcome that A, B, and C. Then that's not like an energy draining relationship. That's actually like you're in a relationship where you're alchemizing each other's difficulties. But there are people who will come to you and you will try to serve them, and it doesn't feel like you're serving. It'll feel like you're serving to like a blocked wall, or you're serving to someone who just keeps saying, yeah, but my life is this. And you're like, okay, but you could try this. And they're like, yeah, but I haven't been given these opportunities. And then at that moment you realize like you're not serving anyone.
So on the note, like, you got it so sussed, like it's frighteningly good, in my opinion, anyway, as to how.
Thank you. And I think it goes the same with like, when you're, let's say you decide to start selling a service or a product of some sort. Like, you won't feel like you're selling anything if you feel like you're serving people. Like, it shouldn't feel salesy if you're selling something that you truly believe is helping people.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, yeah, so it's the same thing. Like, it should feel like what it is.
As you don't, I just don't. Someone said to me the other day about selling with the business that I'm in, and I was like, there isn't a sell. Like, you are helping the restaurant, the diner, the this, the that. There's no sell. There's just, if you're selling, you're doing it wrong. Like, oh, that's right. This is what it was. It was that, but it was something else. I posted a picture of a certificate that I got. There's a thing in the UK called Young Enterprise. It's what it says in the tin. It was sponsored by HSBC. They get you to start a company and make stuff. And when you're 13, 14, it's interesting, right? And as you can imagine, that was like so in my lane. It's unbelievable. So I was like, all right, let's do this. Did that and found the certificate like the other day, clearing things out. And it's from, I think it must be 2008. So it's like 12 years ago. And it rings a bell about that time. And someone posted about, because my post was like, hey, I've been like on this journey since like I was selling sweets on the school bus at age like 11. And someone was like, oh yeah, but you were serving a need, so like I wasn't really selling. I'm like, I said, that is selling. That's literally the definition. I found something that they wanted on a bus, which was sweets they had no access to. And I provided them with that thing at a price they wanted to pay. There was never a sell. I was making like $100 a week pure profit as an 11-year-old. When I got to, I'm still up, by the way, I'm serving this little man here. He's the one that needs serving. Aww. He's coming out this door about 50,000 times today. So literally, in terms of serving, yeah, I was like, I was baffled by this guy's response. He's like, that's not selling, that's just helping people. I'm like, let me explain something to you. Like, that is selling. That's the key. That's what it's all about. Like, it's about providing opportunities, serving people. And that's why this business gets me so fired up every day, because every single day I'm getting emails like you do in your world, people saying, hey, like you just solved this allergy problem. Hey, my daughter can now eat out. Hey, I can now go on date night again. Like that for me, coming from like just a seed of something, like with you just post a picture, with me I posted created an app, whatever, the same thing. Like we're both just like gone into like, mine, albeit it was more like that the serving was the purpose, yours was kind of stumbled in, but it's the same thing. We've got to the same position where like all of a sudden it's like, this is, people need this. Like this isn't just me trying to do something. Like people, as a Spencer responsibility, like people look at your account for inspiration, right? If you don't post for a month, people are going to be really pissed. You're going to like, people will open their phone up and like, hey, like where's my positive Sarah, like happy, get your ass off the couch on the bike thing, or whatever exactly the tone is, right? Which is obviously isn't that, because you're way more eloquent than that, but you know what I'm trying to say. And it's the same thing. And that's what like kind of, when that's the motivation, is like literally just how can I help this community that I feel? How can I help these people that I know? And that's the key. Like that's the key. And then I think everything else just, it's cliche, but cliche for a reason. It just kind of falls into place. You know, like all the money issues go away, or because you just don't need as many material things. But then you're also earning more. So like, hold on a minute, your gap between what you have and what you need and what you're getting is getting massive. And all of a sudden, like, that's why I know the world's very, very tainted or tilted towards financial success. But this is how I view, not millionaires, because I think that's different, but certainly billionaires. The reason I view billionaires quite interestingly is because what that says to me, imagine if you're voting, which obviously you've got to do very soon, unfortunately for your country. But anyway, you got to vote for something. I don't know what. I don't know. I'm not going to touch it. Let's not touch it. But you've got to go vote, right? And the person that wins, in theory anyway, is the one that gets the most votes, right? Because they have appeased the most people. Most people have decided they're the right one, right? Well, money is the same thing in the commercial world, in my opinion, because you vote with your purse or your wallet or whatever else you use, or your contactless bloody Apple Pay or your Bitcoin, whatever it is. And so if you've managed to acquire £1 billion, $1 billion, billion Bitcoins, you must have served a lot of people, and a lot of people willing to give you a lot of money to solve something significant. Like I was talking this morning about, hey, the person that solves this coronavirus thing, like, are going to be probably one of the wealthiest people alive, because they're solving something that has so much value to the world. Now, we might not like the fact that money is attributed to it, and I do understand that. But take that out of the equation, your opinion, for a second. Like, look at Bezos. What's Bezos actually done? He's created something that makes everyone's life easier. That's it. Like, everything else is noise. Like, that's basically what's Elon Musk done. He's created something that makes everyone's life easier. What's Branson done? What's like, and you can argue they've done this wrong and that wrong, but really, you deep down, look, Eric Yuan, or I think that's how I mentioned his name, the guy from Zoom, he's enabled this conversation. They've all just enabled people to get better and do better and be better. That's basically all it is. And I think millionaires can get there without doing that, because you can get lucky. You don't get lucky being a billionaire. It doesn't just, that is not luck. Like, being worth 2-3 million, you may have just done one deal, like being a good sales guy or girl, and like, you know, stumbled upon something at a good time. But being a billionaire, that's why for me it holds so much value. Because the amount of stuff you've created for people to value at that number, like, that is insane. That's what I love about it. And then to be able to do what, I don't know if you've seen this from Jack Dorsey of Twitter, and he's a very divisive character as well, but he has created, and it's flipping phenomenal. If you go on my link tree on Instagram, you'll find it. It's so interesting. He's created a Google sheet, an open document of the money that he's given away, which is like 1.5 billion, right? And exactly where every penny is going and why. You can see it in real time. Wow. And it's like, you're looking at it like, because you get confused what $1 billion is, it doesn't mean anything. But when you see he can give 100,000 to this one and 10 grand to that one, 1 million to this one, and he's still got 1.457 billion left, you're like, that's why you do it. You do it to enable them to redistribute things better than any government can. And most people don't understand that. But governments know everything. They're the same people like you and I. They've had to climb a greasy pole to get there, most of them. And they've got people to serve who necessarily aren't in the best interest of everyone. It's in the best interest of a few. And so, unfortunately, people are starting to get their head around this. The more people acquire wealth that are and people like us are now giving the wealth to the people that are giving it back. That's the loop that's now happening, whereas beforehand that wasn't happening. People are just giving people money. That's why millennials and people now really care who's behind the company. What are they doing with their money? Like, are they just buying a thrower in a private jet and just building gates and walls, literally metaphorically, between each other? Or are they doing those things because they like those things, which is nothing wrong with those material things, but also contributing so much back financially and knowledge and giving things away? Like, that's the key. I don't know if you've seen Kevin Hart talking on Joe Rogan's podcast, but like, it was so inspiring. Did you see that?
I did not, but I love Joe Rogan. He's just
like Kevin Hart,
such a thought leader.
Yeah, Joe Rogan's amazing. I didn't have much of a view on Kevin Hart either way, just whatever. And like, you watched his thing, and I recommend watching it. Like, wow, like, just gets it. Like, the guy just gets it, and exactly what we've been talking about, the same concepts he's talking about. But like, when you hear someone like that talking about it, that's come from nothing and been able to do the things he's done. And then he talks about layers and levels and like how he got to a certain point and thought certain things. So what I was talking about before, he got to a certain point doing okay, and then tried to go, well, how do I get to like that next point, whatever that is? And like, figured out he had to completely do something differently because it wasn't the thing that got him there. And you know that as well, right? Whoever got to 20,000 won't get you to 20 million if that's where you want to go. I'm not saying that is, but yeah. Well, honestly, like, it's been like so much bloody fun, like crazy fun for me.
Yeah, covered a lot of topics today.
Yeah, like just out of nowhere. Like, I called you up and I was like, hey, like, I'm going to be 30 minutes late and I haven't prepared anything. And then I'll say to you that like, it doesn't even make a difference. We'll still be good. Like,
yeah, that's the best way to do it. I believe in unrecited, unprepared, just do it on the fly type.
You want to see what I've written down for you? I've literally written down about the critical mass in my terrible, horrible schooling. And it says ride with Sarah in Miami. And then it says Miami critical mass, group monthly bike ride, 13 miles. That's it.
Yes. When you get to Miami, definitely let me know.
I'm in.
I'll be here.
You're going to regret that decision, but I am so in. Like, I might not be very fit right now, but I'm going to train to get this 13 miles like an easy thing now.
13 miles, you can do it. Like, I
can do like, listen, I've run marathons and stuff. So like, I definitely have the ability.
You can do it.
I for sure can do it. Like, I know I'm only messing around. I can definitely do it, and I will do it. And I want to beat you as well. Like, that's the thing, by the way. Like, you realize, like, I know you're like this superb athlete and stuff, but like, I just want to beat you. Like, it's just fun.
All right.
Or at least try and lose horribly, and no, I try hard.
Challenge accepted.
Done. All right. Do you recommend a quad lock, by the way? Like, on that point, is it good?
I actually really do love quad lock because I bought so many different phone cases from Amazon because I didn't want to spend a lot of money. I just was 100%. Being really cheap.
Everyone's I'm like that.
Yeah, so like I ended up buying all these different, I've gone through so many phone cases because what happens is when you mount them on a handlebar, it like rattles, like if it's not a really stable, secure hold, your phone will essentially like shake during the ride. So this is like, you'll hear this like rattling noise and it's very annoying when you bike. When I got quad lock, they were like, let us send you some stuff and like try it out. Let me know what you think. I don't normally ride with my phone on my bike, only because I don't use my phone to track my miles. I use a different device. However, I use a Garmin, but I do like to have my phone if I'm meeting up with friends. I don't want to keep like reaching in and out of my pocket to get my phone out. Like if I'm meeting somebody somewhere and I'm biking there, then I just want my phone right in the front so I can just see the text coming in and then be able to respond to them or pick up calls. Like I like to have my phone, especially if it's like more of a leisurely process. Now, when it's more, for me, the way that the quad lock became way more valuable to me than anything else was when this whole pandemic happened and I started having to cycle indoors. So when you're on an indoor trainer and you're using a program like Zwift, which is basically like a virtual biking program where you can bike with anybody in the globe. You can do virtual races, but it's called ZWIFT. So when you do Zwift, it's basically you're connecting your smart trainer to your phone or your computer and then to a monitor so that you can kind of see these virtual bikes. The only thing is that unless you want to like pull your laptop next to your bike, you need your phone because you need your onboard controls are going to be on your phone. So like if you want to turn left or if you want to turn right, you're going to need your controls. Okay. So like that was really nice to have the quad lock just like mounted to the front. So whenever I was doing those indoor rides, I could just lock my bike on or lock my phone onto the bike. Nice. And just have my control board right here. And sometimes when you're on Zwift and like you're with other people, like you want to be able to like, you can high five people, like you can do stuff, but you need your control board to do that. So a lot of people were like, well, why would you have your phone when you're cycling indoors? And I'm like, well, once you get really into cycling and you start doing things like Zwift, you'll know that you need your phone in order to access your Zwift control panel. So when you have something like Quad Lock where you can just easily plug it on, it does make the whole like setup smooth, even if you're not cycling outdoors. Outdoors, I don't always take my phone for, like, I don't always want my phone in the front because I have so much other stuff I'm bringing on board. But for Zwift, I found it to be the best place holder, because normally I would like drag up a chair and put the phone on the chair next to the bike and reach down whenever I needed it. So it turned out to be a really good good thing, especially during pandemic when everyone turned to Zwift to get their virtual group rides going. You know, Zwift was really important. I think Zwift played such a huge role in bringing people together at such a hard time.
Wow, that's so
and having that, you know, like quad lock on board, just to like have it locked on your stem, that's it's convenient, you know, it's very convenient. And I think for people who do like to take their phone to either listen to music or use run Strava off their phone to track their miles, it is convenient. You know, if you're just like running out, like let's say you're just running out to the grocery store and you don't feel like driving, and you don't want to like stretch out, you know, like phones are so big these days, like you don't always want it in your back pocket, like that's going to fall out. So it's nice, it's a convenience factor.
That was a great sell. Like I hope Quad Lock pay me for this. Now I'm messing with you. My last question is just very technical. I say it's not totally technical at all. I'm the only reason that, how do you listen to music can you listen to it without your phone? Can you?
Yes.
Like how?
I listen to music off of my Garmin. So this is my second cell. I'm sorry?
Do you use Spotify, or how does it work?
You can, if you have a paid Spotify account, you can actually access that from your Garmin, as long as it's a Garmin music device.
That's a game changer.
So for me, I don't use Spotify on here. I actually download my playlist to my watch. Okay. I have a very specific full send playlist I like to listen to, especially during my runs.
I feel like I might like hear what that playlist is if you do share that thing.
You know what? I can see if I can. It's on SoundCloud. It's actually a playlist somebody else made, but I really loved it and I downloaded it and uploaded it into my Garmin.
Well, just send me the SoundCloud account and I'll just check it out.
Yeah. I can definitely send that to you. Like it's a good one.
So my last question then, Garmin wise, you can download that, but then do you use AirPods? Like how do you actually hear the music, like from the Garmin?
With the music, I use something called like Studio. Actually, this thing called wireless earpods. They look like Apple earpods, but they're black. Okay. So I use those when I go running, just because I don't want any wires. I get very sweaty.
Yeah. It's just a Bluetooth in your watch.
And they're pretty secure. The only thing I don't like about them is that like they're bigger than the Apple AirPods, and they're.
Could you use AirPods though with the Garmin? That's my question. I presume.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, you're getting me tempted for a Garmin now. I've got to say.
Garmin is good.
Best Garmin is good. Watch like different. I know it's different, but like. So the Apple Watch, like for me, the frustration is, and I don't know how this has gotten to this conversation. We've gone from like some deep conversations, like something else, but like with the Apple Watch, I play golf, so it's useful for that and different things. But I hate, I love my own watch because I'm a watch guy. That's my background. But like even beyond that, I hate the notifications. I don't want to know. Like the whole, like my phone rings, my laptop rings, my watch. No, stop. Too much. So with the Garmin, I think would it remove all that? Like I'm just literally me, bike, or me, run, music. Can I do that?
Yeah, you can, like for me, my Garmin is set to not take any notifications from my phone.
Amazing. You're
Yes.
selling me a Garmin right now. What do I buy?
Garmin's are
Can I give
great.
you Apple Pay? Can I pay you right now? Like, what do I do? Amazing.
But yeah, I can
reach out to you, by the way, if they don't already, to sponsor you. Like I'm gonna tell them. Like I bought this watch because Sarah like told me to buy this watch. So like if you don't give it,
I'm actually a Garmin ambassador.
Oh, you are?
I am. I love Garmin. I've always loved Garmin though.
That's so funny though. That's like hilarious.
Yeah, I've been using Garmin. Like I actually had their first generation watch, which was like a analog, like old school square face. Like it was like a 6 or 7 year old watch, and it continued to function for me. The only reason I upgraded to the Forerunner is because I got into a crash and the screen cracked. But if that didn't happen, I probably would have never upgraded because that thing was so old but so reliable. Like it was just my old trusty reliable device. And whenever I'm able to purchase something and it lasts me for a long time without problems, I just get very like attached to those. Like I'm sure with your iPhone too, you get an iPhone, it lasts you for like 6-7 years. You don't really have to upgrade unless you just want to, but the phone itself is solid. It's a good device. And that's kind of how I felt about Garmin. So when they reached out to me, I was like, I love you. I was like, I love Garmin. Like please, like I don't, like you don't have to give me anything. I just love your stuff. Like so that's how the Garmin story went. But I'm happy to send you a link to that playlist and a link to Garmin's website if you want to check out some of their wearables. Yeah, very good stuff.
Yeah, because I know they do. Excuse me, I know they do like golf watches and also like the other side of stuff. Yeah, I'm literally in that space right now where I'm just like trying to figure out like what I spend money on. Like the Apple thing's interesting. Like anyway, another day's conversation. But thank you, thank you so much for like the chat. It's been like almost an hour of like just intrigue and exactly why I set this thing up. But just interesting, you know? Like it's just so interesting to have somebody that I've never spoken to apart from this call. I don't realize this. Like I don't know these people prior to this call. Like now, I probably know you. I know you pretty well. Like I feel like I could go for a coffee and then have a good understanding as to where the coverage is going to go, or not. And that's the whole point, right? But like I know. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's great. It's awesome. Like I have this now all over the world with people that I interview. That's just like so interesting. It's amazing. Like just go and go, hey Sarah, like let me go beat you in a bike ride. Like let this overweight guy beat this really attractive, fit athlete on her own Instagram. I mean, let's post about it.
You don't look overweight.
I'm like, I don't know. Like I've lost 2 stone, but like I need another like 2 to go or something. But like yeah, cycling, quad lock, Garmin, 2 stone bar. There we go.
Alrighty.
Miami, critical mass, 30 miles. What we're at. That's what we're doing.
We'll catch you at critical mass, Charles.
All right, sweet. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Thank you so much.
You too. Pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye.